is uncoverable, it's distinguishable, while lying, while those things that are false are not. And truth stays the same no matter what it is, right? And then truth needs to be spoken in love. Ephesians 4:15 would remind us that. Ephesians 4:15, rather speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into Him who is the head, even into Christ. And so truth is spoken in love. And so one of the things that we get out of that is why do we tell somebody that they're going to have a problem? It's not a very good question. Why do we tell somebody that they're headed down the wrong road? Why do we stop our child from playing in the street? Why do we tell our young children that lying is wrong?
To avoid the consequences that come with it.
Yeah. It's about the end results of those things, right? But we show our love by doing that, right? 2-year-old toddler heads out into the parking lot. What do? We grab their hand, right? Very quickly. We're quick to do that, right? But what about our brother when we see them using language that we shouldn't, or doing questionable things? What do?
Go speak to them and instruct them.
And we should be doing that in love, but what do we do probably more times than not, more times than we want to admit to ourselves?
Tell it straight from the hip, I guess. Straight, just give them the straight facts instead of trying to moderate it a little bit.
Okay.
Or act like you're actually doing it out of love.
Okay. So we don't come across as doing it in love. Good.
Sometimes we do nothing at all. Maybe even gossip behind their back.
Yep, I see Scott over there, lying about something, and what do? Psst, did you see what Scott did? Look over there at him. What is he doing with that, right? We don't go to him, right? And what is that doing? What am I showing to Scott when I see that, when I do that?
First of all, you're showing that you don't care about him or that you don't love him to correct him. But second of all, you're sinning on top of that because you're gossiping.
Yeah. So you're adding on top of that even more so. And so we don't show the love that we're supposed to. Now we're supposed to do this with tact, and we're supposed to do this with wisdom, and we're supposed to do this with, as much human care and concern that we can muster with that. Don't get me wrong. But, we need to go to our brother and encourage them to do the right thing as we can. And so I think that's one of the points that we need to remember about love and about truth, right? Because what's the consequence if I don't?
We're not pulling the brother out of the fire, for one thing, and that can also have a far-ranging effect on other people who see the example that could be leading them down the wrong path.
And typically one small thing builds on another, and it would have been a whole lot easier to take your toddler's hand while they were still headed to the parking lot before it grows into something bigger as a teenager and they're out, doing all kinds of wild things with their car or whatever it might be. And so we need to be careful about that. God is the one who disciplines us. Hebrews 12 would remind us that He does that. He does that momentary light affliction, right? He encourages us. He disciplines us for the moment, because in the moment, what do we think about discipline in the moment? It is not very fun at all, is it? Right? Even as an adult, your boss calls you into his office. He says, hey, Laura, have you got a few minutes? Can I have a chat with you? What's the first thing that goes through your head? What have I done now? What did I say? What did I not? Oh, I've done so. I can't believe what. I'm racking my brain. I can't figure this out, right? And you get in there and they're like, hey, I just wanted to tell you, you've been doing a great job, but, what I'd like you to do is, I need you to work this, whatever, do something. And you're like, okay, sure. Okay, I've made that. But in this discipline that God goes through with us, it is not pleasant, it is not enjoyable, but what does it do? It results in change, right? It results in things that we can take on, that we can do, that we can improve on, and that's what God does for us. Laura?
I just wanted to say, I was listening to a really good lesson about like deconstruction of young people's faith. And we do live in a world that's really working on our young people to undo all of the good they've been taught. And it really made the point that, helping someone that is going through that is a lot more than one conversation with them, that it is about really getting them to open up to you and saying, in love, can I be here for you and discuss these things with you because I care about you. And it just made some really good points, if anybody wants to hear it. But it's a process, it's not a one-time thing because it has taken them a long time to go to the point where they are. And it just has some good points about finding about how far down have they gone to bring them
Right.
back.
And we need to, if we really want to be that help, we need to dig in there, just like a father and a son. I think that's what Hebrews is talking about here in Hebrews 12. Verse 7 says, God is treating you as sons, right? That's what a father does with his children. A good father, that's what they do, right? They go to their son many times. They encourage them. They talk with them. They take many different approaches so that they can pull them back, so that we stay inside of truth, right? We don't wander from the truth. And that's what we need to do. Proverbs 30, verse 8, remove far from me falsehood and lying, is what this psalmist says. And so that's what we need to be thinking about, is how do we remove these things from us? And it's going to take sometimes all of us working together to make that happen. So let's think about this. How would you characterize stretching the truth? Let me ask this first. When I say stretch the truth, is that kind of a generally positive thing or a negative connotation? Negative, we would say, right? And so what do I mean by we're stretching the truth? How would you characterize stretching the truth? A good fish story, right? What is it your partner says? I caught one, but it's actually just 2 inches or whatever. So it's a fish story. Tell me more. It's not the truth anymore. Okay, good. But it kind of is, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. That's right. You were saying that. I was thinking, you go to the doctor and the doctor asks you how you doing. Well, why is my doctor even asking that? The only reason I'm at the doctor is because I'm not doing great, right? But how do you answer? You say, I'm doing fine, right? That's kind of the social kind of thing. And so we're going to dig into this a little bit, but I just wanted us to remind ourselves of a couple passages here. Ephesians 4, having put away falsehood, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing, is we're putting away those things that would, what is lying again? Falsehood or untruth. What else? Something that deceives, right? Something that deceives, okay? Colossians, reminds us a very very strict and stern command here, right? Do not lie to one another, right? And so remove those things from your life, from your vocabulary, from the things that you do. Proverbs, buy truth and do not sell it, right? So we're talking about, Regina, did you have a comment?
I was thinking of the news media. I mean, that's a big one. They stretch things. And we're taught in journalism school, we were taught, if there's two people, you say dozens of people. If there's 101 people, you say hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you can see it everywhere today. I mean, there's a picture of like 10 people, and it will say something completely different because we're taught to stretch them.
Yeah, we're taught to do that. What happens when you stretch something? Let's say you've got your dough rolled out and it doesn't fit the pan. What do? You stretch it?
Not the rubber band.
Okay.
Sometimes when you're stretching it, stretching the truth would sound better. You know what I'm saying?
I do. The truth would always sound better. So you've got this dough rolled out, and you're trying to fit it under your pan. It gets thin, and what else? Yeah, it starts to tear. It starts to get holes in it, doesn't it? It starts to lose. I mean, what are you going to do when you got this dough in your pan and you got this hole in the middle of it, and then you pile in your other ingredients? What's that going to result in? A mess, right? It's not going to be, I mean, it'll work, but it's not going to be the best that you could do. It's not going to be appetizing. And so we get those holes in it, right? But kind of on the flip side, well, let's talk about this. What do you think about Santa Claus? Today is kind of appropriate, the Easter Bunny. What about surprise parties? So your wife or your husband, they're getting ready to have their 50th birthday, and you've told all their friends, and you've arranged this special party or whatever, and then they come in and say, "Hey, what are we doing? I want to go fishing for my birthday." What do you do? You redirect. No, I think it's going to be raining that day, so we can't go fishing. Hey, these are real world things. Y'all help me out here.
Well, purposeful deception would definitely make it a lie. Some of those cases is not purposeful,
Mm-hmm.
but when I'm thinking about Santa Claus and Easter Bunny is when it's so much fun to talk about the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, but at what age do you transition, like you said, to where they can understand what it's really about and that it wasn't real? That's why some people don't even do it.
Mm-hmm. I see nobody's taking my poll here to try to answer, but that's good. Let's have a conversation about it, Tommy.
You need to be a little mindful. You're telling your kids there's this person you can't see, you can't hear, you can't experience that lives far away, and you're also teaching them about God who you can't see, you can't hear, and lives in a place far away. I mean, when you tell them that 5 years old he's not real, what are they going to think about God at that
Yeah.
point?
Not only that, but what does Santa Claus know? Everything. He knows who's good and who's not good, right? And so I think we just need to be careful about that. So we've got some innocent fun, we've got some lying, we've got some stretching the truth. So how do we deal with that? What should be our thought about, these things that are part of our culture, right? I mean, unless you just keep your kids in your own apartment or house or keep them with you all the time, are you going to be able to keep these things away from them? No, probably not, right?
You don't
And-
have to tell them it's real. I mean, you could read a book, you could show them in the book and different things, but make sure you always tell them God is real, because there's lots of people out there that say that God is in that group with the Santa Claus, Easter bunny. So
Okay, so make a distinguishment between those things that are fun and part of our culture and exciting, but yet there really is a difference between those made up things versus the reality of who God is. Good, I like that. What else?
It really does stem back to your intent. If your intent is to deceive and cause harm and make your kids question everything in life because you've told them about this guy in a red suit, you know, even like with the surprise party, your intent is not to cause them harm, to cause them unhappiness or sin or anything like that. It's to then surprise them with something good. So it really does, to me, go back to God knows your intent, and if you're really doing it to be malicious, then that's the problem.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I struggle with the just straight out intent only, because I think there are other times where we see that people have good intentions, but that doesn't really play out very well for them in the end. And so I think we just need to be careful about that. One of the things that I found was that, you know, can you not tell your children that the presents come from mom and dad? Would that traumatize your children so much?
I had a friend, he always told his kid, like, Santa Claus and Easter Bunny is just the guy who brings the gifts on those days. And then when he found out it was dad, I was like, see, I told you it was the guy who brought you the gifts, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
some traumatic thing.
Yeah. And I know we're dealing with children who really don't understand the concept, right? And probably all of us were there at some point with dealing with some of these similar things, and we probably have not been traumatized. And we probably understand the concept as we grow, right? I mean, somewhere around 5 to 10 years of age, you start understanding really more about what's going on. And so you really start to really understand, the fun and the excitement and those kind of things without being so misled down this path. So,
Many parents that put so much importance on Santa or Easter that it's talked about every day of their life. That's how we treat God.
Yeah.
God is in our home 24/7. We pray, we talk about Him, we study Him, we're doing memory verses. That's a daily occurrence. And I guess if a family is putting so much importance on that, then that's what you're going to reap from that.
yeah, good point. I like that. So we really do emphasize it by just it's our daily walk, and we have fun with it during the right seasons or whatever. So that's good. The surprise party kind of thing, we just try not to talk about it, right? So what do you do when you're pressed? Well, what are we doing on my birthday? Just taking you out to lunch. Just taking you to lunch, okay?
Jesus was pressed his entire life about what the end of his kingdom would be, and he never revealed that it was going to end on the cross.
Yeah.
His disciples, he hinted towards it several times, and the closer to it, he plainly told them they just didn't understand what he was saying. But he used figurative language, he used different ways to get them to understand without outright saying it.
Yeah. So, I don't think we're saying that withholding information is deceitful, right? I mean, we can say some things, but we don't have to reveal everything as long as we're not being deceitful in that. But I don't think withholding information is necessarily lying. But at some point, we're just going to have to tell them, and we're going to have to say, you're going to ruin your day if you keep asking questions about it. If you really want to know, I'll tell you, right? And so I think we just need to be careful with that. Other thoughts about it before we move on?
I think you have to know about, going right along with the intent, you have to know how it's going to impact the relationship. If I know Kaylee does not like surprise parties, not for a surprise party.
It's going to be much more likely that you're going to tell her what she wants to hear, right?
Same for Santa Claus, same for the Easter Bunny. We know that they're younger, they're not maybe mature enough to understand that it's all in good fun, and they then that can really hurt your relationship with your child. You may not be able to believe on some things. And once they find out Santa Claus is not real, they're probably going to assume
Yeah.
that a giant bunny isn't like things either.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to say Santa Claus is
Yeah.
It, surprise parties, you know, if you know that your partner or whoever you're throwing the surprise party for really enjoys those types of things, you can know that it's going to strengthen your relationship.
Yeah. Very good. What? Okay. I've let Linda think long enough.
This hit where I didn't know what to do with, okay, we're talking about fairy tales, we're talking about things that are, that we would consider, we know that they're not for real. Well, then, so what do we do? What do we do with witchery? I know that most all of that is evil, but then on Wizard of Oz, you got the good witch, you got the bad witch. Okay. We consider things like that in a book not real, even though we know about the thing out in Boston or Massachusetts, and that was evil to bring about evil, even though some of the stuff that they do is supposed to be for the good of something.
Okay, so how do we deal with something that is somewhat evil, but is really, we know it's made up?
Yeah, made up like fantasy and stuff.
Yeah.
So where do we go with that?
Okay, how do we think about that?
Well, there's a witch in the Bible, the witch of Endor,
Mhm.
that Solomon too. So, you know, there are things in the scriptures that are the devil. We just have to explain, you know, people can call things good. You can call somebody a good witch, but that doesn't make it true.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, you know, some of these things are still part of this fun that we have, but I think we just need to remind our children, those that may not know better, is that these things are really not real. They're just made up. They're the things of the imagination of the mind. But we certainly would not want to encourage them to kind of explore that and attach themselves to those things. So we want to stay away from that. Okay, so we were talking about stretching the truth. How do you represent yourself on your resume to your employer, to a potential employer? In the what? In the best light possible. So 50 years as a...
You don't tell about the projects you led that failed,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you tell about all the good things.
Mm-hmm. So is that wrong?
No, you're just leaving out the negative.
You're leaving out the negative? Okay.
I mean, a resume by definition is your abilities, your talents. A project that's failed was not your talent in the time.
Yeah.
So it's listing the things that you have been able to do successfully or did, you know, your experiences and those things. So leaving that out is not a lie. Now, in the interview, if they flat out asked you, have you ever had a project fail, then I think you're going to have to do full disclosure.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you represent that 30-year-old rickety coffee table on Facebook Marketplace that you really want to get $50 for? It's an antique. It's a priceless antique, but I'm willing to let it go for $50, right? Vintage antique. A project that needs help. Y'all all need some help. Let me just say that. I'm not listening. Is that wrong?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I think you're deceiving, you know, to a certain extent, and you're trying to, you know, embellish it, which is a word that we hear pretty regularly, stuff like this. You want to, like with a resume, you want to embellish it. You know, I've had people that apply for a job, and you need them to know Word and Excel, and they've got, you know, I know Word and Excel, well, then you test them on it. They know how to open it up. That's it. So, you know, that can be a dangerous slope to go down.
Yeah.
Just say to all you vintage lovers,
Yeah.
well low.
Yeah, would you put something like that out there at a reasonable price, not trying to gouge it, just, 30-year-old coffee table, you don't have to say much more than that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what about that brand new car that you get that, you watch the videos online, you see the catalog, you go to the showroom or whatever, and man, that thing, it'll jump over buildings. It'll get 100 miles to the gallon. It'll carry, your family plus, half of your extended family. I mean, this thing does it all. I mean, they don't say that to that extreme, but they put this thing out there like it is the best thing ever, right?
Gotta read that fine print.
Got to read the fine print. Are they deceiving you?
In a sense, so Lily can't read it.
Than the fine print, okay. But with their marketing, are they deceiving you? They might be deceiving you, right?
It depends on exactly what are they saying to you, how are they presenting it, because if they're presenting it to lead you in a wrong direction, that's a different thing. If they're presenting it just what is the better qualities of it, then you've got to research a lot of the negatives. That's as much on us as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like those advertisers, what they advertise is the top-notch model, right? Which is
Yeah, that's right.
hundreds of thousands. Oh, but you get the lower quality one for only tens of thousands.
Right. Yeah. And I think what we want to think about is just like that vintage antique coffee table that we're selling for hundreds of dollars that's only worth $5. How do we feel if we're the guy looking for that thing, right? It's being misrepresented to us. And so I think there's a fairness that we want to get into, right? What do you think about, telling your client that it'll take 2 weeks, take me 2 weeks to build that deck, knowing full well it's going to take you a month?
I think if you know it's going to take a month, I don't think you should tell me.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's misrepresenting.
Yeah, that's misrepresenting. But in reality, it took me 11 days when I had some material ordering problems when I told them it was going to take 10. Is that the same thing? I don't think so. I think people expect there's going to be things that go on, right? And we need to be telling them some of those things, I think. And I'm challenged with that at work. It is very difficult for me. I mean, I represent a fairly large department that I tell people how long it's going to take and how much it costs, but I have no control over any of those things. And that is something that I work on to try to get as good as I can, but hopefully people also understand what we're dealing with. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about marketing in this. We don't want to be that guy on the buyer side of this that's being misrepresented by the scales being out of balance, right? If your scales are out of balance, giving the favor for the seller, that's going to be wrong. And this idea of boasting, of thinking that you're it, that you're where it lies, in all these things that we're doing, if the Lord wills, that ought to be our attitude about these things. If we sell that vintage antique coffee table for $5 or $50, that's really immaterial, right? And so we need to have some balance in there in those things. Okay, other thoughts? What about lying? Is it okay if it doesn't hurt anyone? Ever seen or heard anybody with a phone ring and they get up and they go to another room or they go outside and say, "Tell them I'm not here"? Is that lying? They're not physically here. seems to me like it's deceiving, right? It's deception about it. They knew they were expecting something or whatever.
What about saying I'm not available or he's not available right now?
Yeah. Maybe that's a better way to handle it. Yeah. They'll have to call you back.
He's not willing to take his call.
If you get in a habit of that, it does hurt somebody, it hurts you, it's hurting your conscience. And if you keep doing things, then eventually you'll feel like that's okay.
And it leads down to a spiral, right?
And all liars are in the lake of fire,
Yeah.
so if you're lying,
Yep.
hurting.
If Perry was up here, I'd ask him, did he just have the one cookie? Or did he have the second cookie? Or did he finish them off? What about you tell your boss that you were stuck in traffic, but you really, overslept and it just all adds up, right? Those are some things that we need to be careful about. Ananias and Sapphira you remember that story, right? Acts 5. Were they hurting anybody for keeping back a portion of the proceeds? Was that within their control? Yeah, they were hurting themselves. They hurt themselves how? How did they hurt themselves? By lying about it, right? And how did that hurt? Why was the Holy Spirit so demanding of them?
I think it had to do with, Peter and the apostles had the power of the Holy Spirit to discern things, and they let Sapphira get by with a lie. People would have questioned, well, do these guys really have that power? I mean, it was a question of authority. Did these guys have the authority to even, they can't even tell when these people are lying about what they stole.
Yeah, I think that's good. I hadn't thought about that, Regina.
And they agreed together.
Yeah.
He told her to agree to this.
Yeah, they both knew this thing, right?
Chose it before they even went.
What else? Can you think of anything else why this was such a problem for the early church?
Bad example.
It's a bad example, right?
What I was gonna say is that it shows that we color code lying so much, and we state, oh, well, it's just a little white lie, it doesn't matter. God showed, this might have seemed like something small in human mind, but it's a big thing to me, and it's all lying.
And isn't there a distinguishment between the old covenant and the new? I mean, isn't the way Ananias and Sapphira acted, that's what we would think of, and that's kind of typical of old covenant thinking, right? That it's a checklist. It's just something that we do. We just go along with it because we're born into this nation and we're part of this covenant arrangement under the old covenant, and this is just what we do. But I think here the Holy Spirit is saying, that is not the way we're going to start the early church out here now. And so it is a big deal. And I think lying is a big deal because we can get into so much trouble and so many problems, right?
And it really wasn't just the simplicity of them lying. It was they were withholding from God. They were setting the bad example. They were keeping for themselves. They had greed in their heart. There was a number of sins going on outside of just the lie.
Yeah.
It's true, 'cause, eventually someone would have found out. I mean, they have all this extra money, and then they'd be like, well, if they did that, then I can do that. And it just spirals out of control. People get
Yeah.
the idea of that.
When two people know something, right, there's going to be talk, there's going to be questions, and then the next thing you know, it's like poof, and then where are we at? What is this really God's people or not? Tommy, good point.
This goes along with, I think, the first lesson, which was talking about how lying often is accompanied by other sins. It's not just one. This could have been avoided completely had they came forward and said, "Oh, actually, that was just half." When Peter asked them about it, I mean, they could have lied and then they could have repented. They had another opportunity, but they both doubled down. And it says, "Yes, you sell this for this much. Yes, for this much." And I wonder if they were thinking, well, yeah, that much, but also maybe a little bit more that we're not going to tell you about. So it's not really a lie.
Yeah, and I like that the lie built upon itself, right? And They were trying to tell themselves that it was the truth when it really wasn't. Good points. All right. Bearing false witness. What is bearing false witness?
Distorting or not telling what you actually saw.
Being deceitful about what you saw. Good. Untruth in your testimony, right? So we're talking about something more along the lines of some kind of legal proceedings or some kind of thing that is trying to establish the fact or establish truth in the matter. So we're talking about untrue testimony. The author of the book kind of reminds us of some of the things that we can do, even though it may not be a completely a legal proceeding, but we may say things like, all of the politicians are crooks. Have you ever said that? Have you ever heard somebody say that? Is that true? Every single 100% politician is a crook. No. Please tell me no. I mean, I'm not naive, but I mean, surely there are some good ones out there, and maybe they're not Christians, but they're still trying to do what is right. And I think we just need to be careful with that kind of language, right? Because on the flip side, you might hear your friends and neighbors say, well, that church is just filled with hypocrites. Whoa. Right? Is that me? Do I represent that? Am I the type of person that other people in the world see? Is that the problem with the church? Is that the problem with religion? I think we've gotten ourselves in this world with religion because, to the state we are, because, quite frankly, we don't have people living the way the Bible would say that we need to do. And we need to be very careful about that. We need to represent ourselves the way that the Bible would do so. Part of that is our speech, right? Whether it be lying or whether it be the way we witness about something or somebody else, right? A lot of us may work in jobs that may be larger companies, and how easy is it to bash leadership? It's pretty easy, isn't it? And so we just need to be careful with that. Okay,
Who we profess to believe in too, but we don't say the word false witnessing.
Okay. Yeah, we don't. Why would we do that? Okay, we'll maybe touch on that a little bit Wednesday. Be ready for lesson 3 on Wednesday. I appreciate your thoughts and comments this morning, and if you'd like to move up, you can do so.